There comes a point in life when you get tired of performing, tired of filtering every thought, every move, every dream through the question, what will they think? You start to realize that you've been living as a reflection, not as a reality. And in that moment, something inside you begins to break, not in weakness but in awakening. Because here's the truth no one ever told you. You can never truly live freely while your worth depends on another person's approval. Every time you silence your voice to be accepted, a piece of your soul goes quiet. Every time you shrink your light to fit someone else's comfort, your destiny dims with it. And one day you look in the mirror and realize, you've been wearing masks so long that you forgot what your own face looks like. That's the disease of our generation. We've mistaken attention for love, validation for value, and followers for fulfillment. We've built our self-worth on shifting sands, on likes, on opinions, on applause that disappears the moment we stop performing. But the truth? No one's opinion of you has the power to define you unless you hand them that power. You have to decide, is my life a performance or a purpose? Because you can't have both. You cannot chase greatness while trying to please everyone. You cannot build an empire while checking if the crowd approves of your blueprints. The world belongs to those who are too focused on their vision to hear the noise of doubt. The first step to freedom is silence, not the silence of defeat, but the silence of focus. When you stop explaining yourself, when you stop defending your choices, when you stop craving to be understood, that's when power begins to rise. You start to realize that peace doesn't come from being liked, it comes from being aligned. And that's the rarest thing in the world. A person so aligned with their own truth that no opinion can shake them. Understand this, people will talk regardless. They'll judge you when you're quiet, they'll judge you when you speak. They'll doubt you when you start, they'll envy you when you succeed. So you might as well live your truth and let them talk. Because their words say more about their limits than your worth. You don't need to explain the fire inside you to those who've only ever lived in the dark. You must learn to live with selective hearing, not for sound but for energy. Not every voice deserves access to your peace. Not every opinion deserves a place in your mind. Your energy is sacred, and where you give it determines who you become. When you allow everyone to influence your thoughts, you hand over the steering wheel of your life. And most people can't even drive their own. The moment you realize this, life becomes simple. You stop chasing validation. You stop begging for permission. You start building in silence, moving with conviction, and letting your results do the talking. Because the loudest people rarely have the deepest purpose. But the calm ones, the ones who walk quietly with certainty, they move mountains. And that's what you must become. Still, focused, and untouchable. Not because you don't care, but because you finally care about the right things. You care about your vision, your growth, your mission. You care about becoming the person you were born to be, not the image others expect you to play. Remember this, belief is the birthplace of freedom. When you believe in yourself, you no longer beg for belief from others. When you know your direction, you no longer need a map drawn by someone who's never walked your path. Most people live like mirrors, reflecting what society expects. But the few who change the world, they live like flames, creating light from within, even when the world tries to smother it. To stop caring what others think is not arrogance, it's alignment. It's returning home to yourself. It's understanding that approval was never the prize, authenticity was. It's knowing that the voice in your soul deserves to speak louder than the whispers of the crowd. People will call you selfish when you stop living for them. They'll call you arrogant when you finally love yourself. They'll call you unrealistic when your vision doesn't fit their comfort. Let them, because their opinions are projections, reflections of their own fears and limits. They're not thinking about you as much as you think they are. They're too busy battling their own insecurities. You have one life, one brief, sacred chance to become something eternal. Do not waste it trying to be understood by temporary minds. You were not born to blend in, you were born to build. You were not made to be liked, you were made to be remembered. And those who are remembered are always misunderstood first. So the next time you hesitate to act, to speak, to dream, remember this truth. The world cannot see your worth until you do. The moment you decide that your voice matters, the universe begins to listen. But if you wait for approval before you move, you'll wait forever. Because no one applauds the seed, they only applaud the tree. But the seed still grows anyway. Grow anyway. When doubt comes, speak to it. Say, you don't own me. Say, I'm done asking for permission to be who I am. Say, I'd rather fail as myself than succeed as someone else. Because every time you choose authenticity over approval, you reclaim another piece of your soul. And a soul at peace with itself is more powerful than a crowd of 1,000 clapping hands. Most people think freedom means doing whatever you want, but that's not freedom. That's distraction dressed in freedom's clothing. Real freedom is knowing who you are so clearly that no external noise can rewrite your script. It's the quiet certainty that your path is yours, even if no one claps, even if no one understands, even if you walk it alone. Because when you know what you stand for, you no longer fall for everything else. Clarity is power, but it demands sacrifice. You must give up the comfort of confusion, the illusion of belonging everywhere. You must be willing to stand apart, to stand firm, to stand still when the world rushes by chasing approval. Every master, every visionary, every soul who ever carved their name into eternity, they all faced this same battle. They had to break free from the opinions of those who couldn't see what they saw. When the Wright brothers said they'd build a flying machine, people laughed. When Edison failed 1,000 times, they mocked him. When Tesla dreamed of a world powered by invisible forces, they called him insane. But history doesn't remember the laughter, it remembers the light. And that's your reminder. No one will remember the people who doubted you. They'll only remember that you didn't stop. Because the truth is, the world belongs to those who keep walking long after the applause fades and the criticism begins. You have to learn to love the silence between success and recognition, because that's where transformation happens. You see, belief isn't built in comfort. It's built in contradiction. In the space where the world says impossible, and your soul whispers, watch me. Belief is a rebellion. It's the decision to trust your inner voice when everything outside tells you not to. It's the courage to keep showing up when no one notices, to keep building when no one helps, to keep dreaming when no one believes. You can't fake belief. You can't post it. You can't buy it. It's earned through every night you spent questioning yourself but still got up and tried again. It's forged in the pain of rejection, the sting of ridicule, the loneliness of chasing. It's forged in the pain of rejection, the sting of ridicule, the loneliness of chasing something bigger than approval. Belief is not confidence. Confidence says, I can do this. Belief says, even if I fail, I'll rise again until I do. And that kind of belief, unshakable, untamed, that's the foundation of freedom. Because when you believe deeply enough, you stop negotiating your destiny. You stop seeking permission to exist. You start to walk like someone who knows that destiny bends to those who refuse to bow. But belief without clarity is chaos. That's why most people stay stuck. They want everything but stand for nothing. They crave success but fear the silence required to find direction. They want to be admired but not misunderstood, loved but never criticized. And so they live in a constant war between desire and doubt, building halfway, stopping halfway, living halfway. Clarity demands solitude. It requires stepping away from the crowd long enough to hear your own voice again. When was the last time you asked yourself, what do I truly want? Not what the world expects, not what looks good on a resume, not what will impress anyone else, but what sets your soul on fire. That question is terrifying because once you know your answer, you can no longer pretend to be lost. Once you find your truth, you are accountable to it. And that's where discipline is born. Not the kind that comes from force, but the kind that comes from devotion. Discipline isn't punishment, it's self-respect. It's the act of showing up for your future self even when your present self is tired, scared, or uncertain. You don't build discipline by being perfect. You build it by refusing to quit, by saying, I'll try again tomorrow, 1,000 times, by replacing the need to be liked with the need to become. Every repetition of consistency is a vote for the person you are becoming. Every act of discipline whispers, I am free. Discipline is freedom, not control. When you master yourself, no one can manipulate you with praise or break you with rejection. You are untouchable, not because you're invincible, but because you've decided that your peace is not for sale. And here's the secret. When you stop caring what others think, your discipline deepens. You stop performing for applause and start performing for progress. You stop chasing validation and start chasing evolution. And the funny thing is, when you stop trying to impress people, you become impossible to ignore. Because authenticity has a power that imitation never will. Every time you choose truth over popularity, purpose over comfort, integrity over image, you win a battle that no one sees but everyone feels. You start radiating a kind of confidence that doesn't need to be announced. You begin to move differently, quieter, calmer, more certain, and people start to feel it. They can't explain it, but they sense it, that rare, magnetic energy of someone who no longer needs to prove anything. That's what real power looks like. Not shouting, not showing off, not convincing, just being. Being so deeply grounded in who you are that the noise of the world fades to static. Being so focused on your purpose that comparison becomes irrelevant. Being so committed to your vision that fear turns into fuel. Let them misunderstand you. Let them whisper. Let them project. Because your silence will speak louder than their noise. And one day, the same people who questioned you will quote you. They'll wonder how you did it, and you'll smile, knowing the truth. You stopped asking for permission, and that's when life began to open. You see, life doesn't open for the cautious, it opens for the courageous. The ones who walk alone long enough to find their real tribe. The ones who stop editing themselves for comfort and start expressing themselves for truth. The ones who understand that rejection is simply redirection. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be understood by yourself. Once you grasp that, every door you thought was locked begins to move. Because clarity gives you keys, discipline turns them, and belief is what walks you through. You will know you are finally free when peace no longer depends on who understands you. When your happiness no longer lives in someone else's approval. When you can walk away from noise without needing the last word. That's when you'll feel it, that stillness that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't prove. The quiet confidence of someone who knows, I don't need to be seen to know I exist. That's when vision takes over. Not the kind of vision the world sells, the one filled with luxury, applause, and comparison, but the vision that wakes you up at dawn with fire in your chest. The vision that whispers, this is who you were meant to become. It doesn't need validation because it is validation. It's your soul remembering itself. Vision is what pulls you when motivation fails. It's the picture of your potential that refuses to fade. And here's the truth. Most people never see it clearly because they're too busy looking at everyone else's. They scroll through other people's lives until they forget their own calling. But you can't afford that anymore. Your purpose is too sacred to trade for distraction. When you stop caring what others think, you stop trying to live their dream and finally start building yours. And that's when life starts to shift. You begin to notice that you don't need as much. Not as many people, not as many likes, not as much noise. You begin to crave depth over attention, progress over popularity, peace over validation. You start moving differently, quieter, sharper, more deliberate. You stop seeking recognition and start seeking mastery. Because mastery doesn't crave attention, it creates it. People can't ignore someone who moves with purpose. They might resist you at first. They might laugh, gossip, doubt, but eventually, they'll have to respect what doesn't break. And that's the moment you realize. Every time you chose peace over reaction, every time you chose silence over chaos, you were building something unshakable inside yourself. You've become the kind of person who can stand in the middle of storms and still see the sun. You've become your own anchor. You've become your own proof. That's when purpose reveals itself, not in a moment of lightning, but in the slow burn of endurance. Purpose doesn't show up fully. It grows with you, piece by piece, every time you choose authenticity over imitation. It's built in the moments when you didn't quit, when no one thanked you, when you showed up anyway. Purpose is not what you do, it's who you are becoming through what you do. And when you finally see that, you stop running from pain. You understand that pain wasn't your punishment, it was your teacher. It stripped away the false layers of approval and showed you who you really are. It carved wisdom into your spirit, discipline into your habits, and strength into your heart. Pain made you real, and real always rises. The world doesn't need more people who fit in. It needs more people who stand out by being fully themselves. People who aren't afraid to be disliked for telling the truth. People who are willing to walk alone for a while if it means walking in integrity. Because the moment you stop chasing acceptance, you become magnetic. The world may not agree with you, but it will feel you. That's how leaders are born. Not through permission, but through persistence. Not through approval, but through alignment. Every movement that ever changed humanity began with someone who refused to care what the world thought. They cared about the truth burning inside them more than the comfort outside them. So ask yourself, what truth are you silencing to fit in? What dream have you buried to avoid being judged? What parts of you have you dimmed to keep others comfortable? Because that's the cost of caring too much. You trade your brilliance for belonging. But belonging to yourself, that's the real revolution. You don't need the world to understand your vision. You just need to understand it enough to build it. The ones who changed history were laughed at, doubted, dismissed until they weren't. You will be too. That's the price of growth. But there's something stronger than judgment. Time has a way of revealing the ones who were right all along. So stop explaining. Stop proving. Stop apologizing for your fire. The world may not understand it yet, but it will. One day they'll look back and call you lucky. They'll call you gifted. They'll call you chosen. But you'll know the truth. You were simply unafraid to be misunderstood. You were brave enough to stand for something real in a world addicted to noise. So stay the course. Keep walking even when it's lonely. Keep trusting even when it's dark. Keep believing even when the world calls you crazy. Because the world has always belonged to the ones who kept going after everyone else stopped. And when you finally reach that quiet mountaintop, when you feel peace instead of pride, purpose instead of applause, you'll understand what freedom really means. It's not about never being judged. It's about no longer being controlled by judgment. It's not about never feeling fear. It's about walking through fear without losing your faith. So let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them misunderstand. You are not here to please them. You are here to rise above them. And the moment you stop caring what they think, you'll hear something you've been missing all along. Your own voice, clear, calm, powerful, guiding you toward the life that was always meant to be yours.